The wasteland doesn't forgive. It chews you up, spits you out, and grinds whatever's left into the dirt. People call it survival, but really, it's just taking. Taking what you need. Taking from anyone too weak to stop you. That was my life. I was a raider, a taker, and I thought that's all I'd ever be, until the tapes. It was after a raid, a bad one. Not that any of them were good, but this one stuck with me. We hit a farming settlement, a tiny, struggling community, with barely enough to survive. We didn't just take what they had. We made sure they couldn't rebuild, burned their fields, tore apart their homes, left them with nothing. Cage, our leader, called it sending a message. That night, we holed up in the ruins of an old church. It was a husk of what it once was. Cracked stone walls, shattered windows. A place where people once prayed for salvation, now filled with laughter and drunken raiders boasting about the slaughter. I couldn't stand to be near them. I wandered to the back of the church to what used to be the altar. The wood was scorched black from some long-ago fire, and behind it, half buried in rubble, I found a safe. Took me a while to crack it open. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe some caps, maybe nothing at all. And inside were holotapes, dusty, worn, with hand-scrawled labels that read, "For Raiders' Souls." I almost left them there. Almost. But something about those words, it felt like a challenge. So I took them. I waited until the others were passed out, popped the first tape into my player. That's when I heard him.
If you're listening to this, then you've walked the same dark road I have. You've taken, you've destroyed, and you've survived. But survival isn't enough. Raiders, we're strong and fearless, but strength without purpose, that's destruction. It doesn't have to be this way.
The voice was steady, calm, and heavy, with a kind of weight you can't fake. Whoever this Father Elijah was, he'd seen the same darkness I lived in. And he wasn't just talking. He understood. The tapes became my secret. Every night when the others were passed out, I listened. Elijah told his story. A man who'd lived among raiders, who believed we could be more than killers. He spoke of turning our strength into something good, something that could protect instead of destroy. But his story didn't end in redemption, it ended in fire. His own people, raiders he'd tried to save, turned on him, betrayed him, killed him. But even in his final tape, his voice never broke.
If you've made it this far, then you understand. You see what I was trying to do. The wasteland doesn't change on its own. It takes someone willing to fight for it. If you've got the strength, if you've got the will, try. Please, try.
Those words burrowed into me like shrapnel. I couldn't shake them. Couldn't stop seeing the faces of the people we'd left broken. Their screams, their empty stares. They followed me, haunted me. Then Cage announced our next raid, another farming settlement, just like the last, barely scraping by. Cage didn't care. Said it wasn't about the loot, it was about the message. I tried to ignore it, tried to bury the feeling rising in my chest, but when Cage outlined the plan, I couldn't hold it back anymore. I told them we didn't have to do this, that we could change. Some of them laughed. Some stared at me like I'd gone crazy. Cage just shook his head.
You're soft, Quinn, and soft gets you killed.
Maybe he was right, maybe I was soft, but Elijah's words kept ringing in my ears. Redemption is possible. It starts with a choice. That night I made mine. I played the tapes for the gang. Elijah's voice filled the ruined church, speaking of purpose, of strength turned toward something better. Some of them listened. Most didn't. Cage? He laughed.
A dead preacher and his fairy tales, you really think that's going to change anything?
Not the tapes, but maybe the choice could. Cage came at me, and I knew it would end one of two ways. Out here, power isn't something you give. It's something you take. The fight was quick, brutal. It always is. But when it was over, Cage was on the ground, and I was still standing, Not everyone stayed. Some walked away, said they couldn't follow someone like me. But the ones who stayed, we started something new. We stopped raiding settlements and started protecting them. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't easy. We were raiders. Violence was in our blood. But little by little, we tried. Elijah's voice stayed with me, even now. Redemption is possible. It starts with a choice. The wasteland doesn't forgive, it doesn't forget, but maybe, just maybe, it can learn.